Well, I'm here. Let's see.
Get out your pens and stuff. I don't need to write
Still
on the
looks
board.
pretty weird. Yeah, that wide angle is fine for everything except the whiteboard little one. I mean, it's just so wide angle it reduces the resolution something terrible.
Okay, well, we'll keep that in mind, and I will try to find a way to incorporate your other camera again.
Yeah, Rock, I usually cue it up about an hour beforehand. Anyhow. So, yeah, I think we'll have to use the other camera next weekend.
All right.
Just so we can see the board. Well, take a look. Can you read those numbers there? Can't even hardly tell there are numbers there.
Mm-hmm.
See? I say the wide angle works really good for seeing a lot of stuff, but it gives you zero resolution. This is the camera on the new computer. We got our USB hub or something, I think they call it. So we got that. Been watching the tornado generation going on. Looks like they're just about to get slammed good in Kansas there with a big one. So any of you folks in Kansas or Oklahoma, definitely pay a lot more attention to the weather than me right now. It looks like it's going to be a bad one. Your label is stuck at 450, huh? Anyhow, so as you may have noticed, we had our first international television debut last week. How many of y'all got to see that? Hey, Chris, how's it going? Because I thought our little appearance was reasonable under the circumstance. They had to really, I mean, they had a short time frame. Thank you, David. I mean, they edited it down really short. They made one technical error that I can think of. They made one significant omission that I can think of when it comes to our stuff. There was a big technical error at the very beginning when Dave, I believe it's Dave, right? My mind sucks. Anyhow, when he was explaining how gold got into the rocks and said it comes from molten rock, completely forgot the whole hydrothermal solution part. Dave Turin, yeah. We were on Amazon Prime. Really? Over here, we were on the Discovery Channel.
Well, Amazon Prime has the Discovery. They have Discovery Plus.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the stuff is. We came on at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on the Discovery Channel, let's say from our viewpoint. And say Dave Turin, in my opinion, made a major error there.
Just FYI, if you missed it, I have been told by several people it is now on Discovery Plus. It's season 1, episode 8 of the show.
It says Montana Hard Rock Heaven. Is our kettle corn email still good? If you want to get a hold of me, not really. I mean, it's still active, but I never look at it.
I check it.
Use the Hard Rock U email. That one I look at every day.
No, I check the Hard Rock. I check Wild West Kettle Corn.
Eva says she does.
Yeah, that's the one I use for spam.
But anyhow, so Eva just turned off the lights there.
Oh, okay. I'll turn it back on.
Wow. And that's another problem with this is that it gets the ceiling light too.
Okay.
Man, it's such a wide camera, yeah. Understood, Rock. Um, we took video of us watching it, so I can probably edit that to where there won't be any copyright strikes. But let's say I thought they did reasonably well. Hello, Adam. Um, but they completely forgot we get the gold out of solution with a resin intermediate stage thing, and they said it was electroless plating, or maybe I did, but I was talking about when we were checking the solution.
You said it was electroless.
When I was talking about the stripping solution, dipping the copper strips in it. So it was a little confusing, but in general, not, harmfully deceptive, in my opinion.
Wow, this really is wide angle. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's really wide angle.
Well, actually, I prefer wide angle.
Yeah, well, that's too wide angle. So I can't write anything on the board that could be read. So anyhow, that worked reasonably well. I thought the other people that were on there were pretty reasonable. Two people to date tracked me down using my old articles at the California Mining Journal as the point of contact. And the California Mining Journal has a methodology where someone can send a mail to their Echo server or whatever, and it will send it to me without giving away my email, which I appreciate that. But anyhow, so I talked to them. One of them's in Florida and is interested in some stuff around the Dahlonega Gold Belt in Georgia, I believe. And then the other person is just down south of us in the General Butte area. He's got some mines there. He also went to Colorado and tested and then bought a mechanism. I didn't recognize the name, but its purpose is to do a gravity extraction on microfine gold. So next Sunday, we're tentatively scheduled to head down there to Butte with some of our crushed material from top of the hill and go down there and test it on that. I presume we'll be able to do a video, but that's up to him. And he's got some arsenopyrite ore, which I presume, we can give the information on that. It'd be nice to test the Eco Gold X on an arsenopyrite ore and an arsenopyrite concentrate. So that might offer interesting possibilities. The construction of the mill at the mill is going well. I've taken video but not posted anything because I really haven't gotten anything done. But I reinforced the platform on which the agitation tank sets, put the agitation tank on it, and loaded it with a goodly, a more than usual amount of solution to anchor it down. Yeah, I'm not planning on it, Rock. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm planning on just taking crushing. Well, he's got a crusher too, but anyhow, taking some crushed material and doing a gravity extraction, and then test the effectiveness on the concentrates and the raw ore, and see what happens. That's my goal at this point. But anyhow, I guess I got the tank up and I started construction of the new platform and supports for the new sluice setup. And I'll have to, I got to bring in my impact mill and set up the dust collector and the slurrying apparatus, section and stuff. I would feel fairly confident that I'll be actually running some ore next week. Although, quite frankly, I didn't see my dust deputy outside. I think it's probably inside the mill building there, but I haven't found it yet. So I presume shouldn't be a problem. If nothing else, I did find my old slurrying bugware, my homemade um, dust collector, so I can certainly do something. But that's
I thought the other one was up on the shelf, the dust deputy.
the big shelf.
Yeah.
In the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I do not know. I'll have to actually look. So I say I would expect to be running test batches next week. So far, the gold in solution in the pregnant pond has been very low, essentially below detection limits with our crude spot test sort of thing. I'm not sure why. It could just be that by the time we were, finishing up the season, it was so cold that the Eco Goldex couldn't do a damn thing. Don't know. But we are pumping material out of the pregnant pond through resin and putting it back into the tanks that we have, and essentially getting ready for operation. Um, we've got the stripping circuit back operational.
Interesting.
Although we weren't there long enough for us to actually start stripping anything, we were just doing a little test. So everything seems to be coming together. Nothing really big to report that I can think of. Anything you can think of in terms of a newsy sort of thing? I don't know, Rock. I don't think there's a lot of biologics at the bottom of the pond, although it wouldn't surprise me. When I tried freezing the stuff in the sample in the freezer, it seemed to concentrate at the bottom when frozen, as it froze, and freezing and thawing and refreezing didn't seem to affect the known sample.
Well, I already told you my theory.
So I say we shall see. Was there solution loss over the winter? None detectable. If anything, there was a gain in solution volume due to precipitation getting past the rain covers. We have 2 rain covers, but there's a third area that is not effectively protected by a rain cover, and that's the area where the pregnant and barren tanks are. It's specifically built so that any leaks will automatically drain into the pregnant pond and be contained thusly. And because it's got tanks, it's a little hard to cover. So I'm sure that some precipitation got into the pregnant pond that way, but it wasn't a huge gain. So I say we shall see. As I recall, last year when we brought it back on operation, we got a surge of
Yeah, we got a surge of higher than normal, and it's my theory that what happened was over the previous winter that led to the last surge.
Yeah.
We had leached out all the extra stuff that was already sitting on the pad. And this past year, we did not add enough new rich material to cause there to be a surge this year.
I don't know. say we will see what, as things come up to temperature and get stabilized and stuff, we will see. Last year, what I did, once I got the pregnant pond pumped into all the tanks, then I still had a little bit left, and what I did was I pumped it up on the pad and sucked the bottom of the pond clean. I mean, I was actually hosing the dust and everything, dumping it on the pad. It would, thereby be filtered, and that would make it a lot easier. I wouldn't be catching much silt when I was pumping stuff, and I got started with a nice clean pond. I presume I'll do the same thing this year. Once I get everything as pumped out as I can into tanks, then I can just, real quickly pump it up on the pad, and the time delay between it getting on top of the stacked material to where it's coming out is plenty enough time to get that pond pumped dry and cleaned out. So that's my evil plan there. We've got some resin that we're checking. I say we have some testing we can do in the lab while we're getting everything going here. And then I'll be testing the new mill circuit. And I'm going to make a test. If you take a plastic putty knife and make notches in the end, you can make whatever shape notches you want and use it, like a notch trowel, to shape silicone. So my plan is to take a piece of board or plywood and about a 1/2 inch thick, and then put some silicone on it and use the notch trowel. Oh, I'm going to have to, this is a magnified view because of the wide angle lens. And make that kind of a circle, but very, very small, like these, maybe an 1/8 of an inch high, and make a silicone surface to see how well the silicone works compared to, say, the we have a gold hog mat that's very similar to that. And
we can also test our new bath mat.
Oh, and yeah, we got a bet. Where's the bag on that? That's pretty hilarious. Bring me the mat too. When we were at Ryan's house, Eva's son had a bath mat in the bathtub that was very comfortable, did a great job. You didn't slip or anything like that. And we liked it so much, we asked him, where did he get it? Minor Stacy? Not sure who that is. Rock. Thank you, Mr. Lodak. Anyhow, this is a Montvue bath mat. Okay. And this is what it looks like. I mean, it's basically miner's moss.
Comfortable.
And I say, let me write that now down. 406 minor. That's our area codes. That's probably why I got mats. Okay, Rock. Yeah, if you want to give me his email or whatever, yeah, that'll be fine. So anyhow, I'm thinking a very fine sawtooth out of silicone would probably be the best bet. But I mean, currently we have the VDR mat, Gold Hog sawtooth type mat. We've got miner's moss, conventional miner's moss, and I'm going to try that. Another thing I'm going to try is taking a gold pan and putting some Rain-X in it, cleaning it up, just so I got the fully treated surface with no loose Rain-X, and seeing if by making a hydrophobic surface, it does a good job of snatching the gold.
That was my idea.
So, we shall see what happens there. We have lots of stuff planned out, and that just, that doesn't even count the just running stuff and continuing on with operations. So that is our evil plan. And we shall see what happens. Another thing that I'm thinking might work well is, and I'm putting this out there, but if you take Alan Robertson yonder, he took a regular gold pan and made a flat section for the front like this. And my thought is, I just had an eraser here. Good Lord. How can I? My thought was, for what I do, the microfine gold, it might be fun to make a pan that's basically a square pan. So you have 4 surfaces with different size riffles on each, one. And that might be a useful tool. That's only because, to me, I work a horizontal oscillation when I'm doing my pan. And I think the technique I use, when I'm concentrating, might work out better in that. Now, the final finish, I have no clue. I'm just saying that if I'm just going horizontally over a flat surface, essentially as a sluice, that might work better. We shall see what we shall see. There you go, Mr. Lodak. No, I just like trying a bunch of different things, because if nothing else, I learned something. If something that I think would work doesn't work, then it improves my knowledge base. Like it was fun to go over there with Flower Gold Wizards and watch him panning the same stuff I was panning, but radically different methods, and see how his method worked and how my method worked. His did pretty good. He got about as much as I did. I got to give him that. I think mine was quicker, and that was about it. I've still got some of his black poison I got to pan too.
That's to play with.
I got to do that. Yeah.
I think we should try that on the Rain-X pan and on a couple of other things too.
Where the heck?
It's around somewhere.
Oh, I know where it is. It's in this case here. Down at the bottom, no doubt. Good Lord. Everything in the world in here. Should be in here, I would think.
Really now. That's going to be interesting. I hope that doesn't happen in ours.
See, there's something I got to do. Let's see, you had the. Yeah, this is the. What the heck do they call those darn things? Those glowy rocks over in Lake Superior.
Uprolite.
Uprolite. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I had some pretty ones.
Yeah, it's got. It looks as good.
Neon orange.
Flowy, glowy crystals in there. Certain of the crystals glow, and certain don't.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I'll put the light back in the light holder and put the rock back in the rocks. But anyhow. So yeah, I got to get that. It's another thing I could do is pan that Flower Gold Wizard stuff. Sodalite, huh? Okay. Well, it also depends. See, here's another thing too. Are you trying to get clean gold, or are you just trying to concentrate it as rapidly and as efficiently as possible? Those are two different things. And depending on how much gold you have and like that, you know, again, if I can concentrate it down to 30% gold with very little losses, but do it very quickly, then Eva can smelt it the rest of the way, no problem. So we shall see. Yeah, as I said, there's lots of different things, and you know, it's fun just trying different stuff from time to time. But as I said, I'd like to see what happens. I forgot the name of that pan I got. It was a square sort of pan. I forget what the name of it was. It didn't really do what I needed very well in order to reveal the microfine gold, but it might have been good at concentrating. I don't know.
It might also be just needing a different technique.
Falcon pan. Let's see. Falcon gold pan. Let's see. FALCON gold pan.
Oh, good Lord.
The Falcon gold finishing pan. It looks like it's got a shallow slope. Micro groove texture. Yeah, that might work pretty well. Well, it depends on where you buy them. At High Plains, prospectors are $9.95. On eBay, it's $17.95. AB prospecting, $9.95. There's a video on it. Yeah, let me make a note on that. Hey, Jean-Francois. So many things to do, so little time to do it. Oh, so yeah, I say I like to try different stuff, see what works, and like that. Yeah, I did, Jean-Francois. Those are some nice nuggets there. Picturesque. That's an interesting way to spell that. I presume that's humorous as opposed to French. Yep. Yeah, it's some nice looking stuff. Oh, I'm hoping someday to find some real chunky stuff. That would be nice. I mean, it's definitely around here. There are places, but just finding one. Yeah, that's what I thought. It looked pretty good to me. So anyhow, um, say I we're going to be playing a lot of games as usual when we're doing our stuff and seeing what works and what doesn't and what works better. And just because I got something that works doesn't mean I'm not willing to look at something better like Jean-Francois's not creatine, was it? Glycine leaching. Yeah. The chemical company hasn't called me up to say he got the sample yet, so we haven't done anything on that. But we do intend to do some testing this summer on that too. Um, I'm thinking the glycine leaching might be really good for. No, I didn't send them a sample. I called the local chemical company to see what the price of glycine might be, and he called his suppliers, and one of his suppliers said that he was going to send the local supplier a sample of the glycine, and then uh, so he said he was just he's willing to give it to me, sort of thing. It's like cool, that'll get me started on the testing, but the potential issue I see with the glycine for a leaching circuit is that it says that you typically want to go at a somewhat elevated temperature, like 130 degrees, which around here would be difficult to reach without, large energy inputs, an inside mill and this and that and the other. But it might work very well for leaching concentrates, you know. So I say that's a possibility, especially something like the arsenopyrite. Uh, with arsenopyrite, my first line of approach would be crush it modestly and do a gravity separation, and then pulverize the bejesus out of it and do a leach on it, you know. And that's where something like the glycine might come in very, very well. I don't know. You also, when you're talking arsenopyrite ore, you got the stupid problem of what do you do with the arsenic? Anything you dig may become officially a toxic waste. So that can be a problem. But say we may be doing a reasonable number of experiments on arsenopyrite this summer too. I don't know. We'll certainly do that too, Jean-Francois. But I say that the problem I see with glycine for doing large amounts at one time is keeping that elevated temperature, especially something like a pad leach, like we're doing. Yeah, that's just not going to work very well if it's that critical. Now, it may not be critical, but from the little bit I read, it seemed that the temperature was critical in terms of what you're going to dissolve. It was kind of like one of the major parameters in terms of selectivity. But, that's where laboratory scale testing comes in handy. That's where your little, magnetic stir hot plate comes in. Hi, Brian. So I say you just do stuff on a small scale first, see what works, what doesn't. Yeah, in southern states that might work pretty good. There's all kinds of possibilities, like in southern Arizona in the summertime. That'd be no problem at all. But up here, the air temperature rarely gets above 90. So achieving those kind of temperatures would require some kind of dedicated heating circuit. How did it work, Brian? Got any results yet? So that's a nice thing about our little group here too, is different people are trying different things at once, and when something works, they can let other people know, etc. Oh my goodness. Were you able to ascertain anything in the way of results, Brian? I mean, you just put the leach solution on the ore and agitated it, and that's all you know at this point, or do you have any idea what actually happened? So anyhow, so we got loads of stuff to try this summer. That's for sure. And okay. The lysine leach at 120 made gold leaf go into solution in 2 minutes.
Lysine.
Uh-huh.
You said lysine. They're two different.
Glycine, I said. Okay. Anyhow. Well, that seems pretty good. He said he dissolved gold leaf in 2 minutes.
That's good.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
I'm thinking that might work real well for e-waste.
Yeah, that might be a very good one for e-waste too. Absolutely. Because low toxicity
and selectivity, supposedly.
Selectivity. It doesn't fume or anything like that either, does it, Brian? I mean, it's just pretty benign material. What's your pH? I forget. It's been a couple of weeks. My brain ain't that good. Going to the neurologist tomorrow to get the results of my tests. You know? But yeah, I say it should work out pretty good. And I say I would think it'd be quite simple and safe to use. You know, most of the things you use for stripping electronic parts are going to be relatively hazardous solutions, you know, and anything that's relatively non-hazardous and simple to recover the gold from, even if it's got to be at elevated temperatures or anything like that, shouldn't be much of a problem to accomplish. So I think that may be one of the primary applications because it's just so easy. Sodium percarbonate is a copper suppressant. Yeah. So it looks like it's got a lot of potential, but I say my suspicion is it's not going to be that great for major tank leaching or especially heap leaching or dump leaching. But if it will do the job at a, ambient temperature, 60, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, then that would work fine on a pad leach. So I don't know. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying, Brian. That 130 degrees makes it difficult for doing tons per hour sort of processes unless you got a lot of money to begin with. And but on the other hand, I say processing concentrates or electronic waste or something like that, it shouldn't be a problem either.
Dear Lord, Lizzo's wearing a really weird outfit at the Met.
What's new, huh?
Oh no, this one's far beyond the usual.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll come show you.
Apparently the Met Gala is on tonight and Lizzo showed up in something
almost like the sea hag from Little Mermaid, maybe?
Actually, that's much better than what she usually wears.
Well, it's just bizarre.
I mean, usually there's just a bunch of Lizzo hanging out everywhere.
Yeah, in this case, the Lizzo was hanging out, but it's covered by semi-sheer material.
Which is better than nothing. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Brian. But that's where the concentrates, electronic parts, things like that. Thank you, Brian. Um, so, I say I'm thinking it's got a lot of potential there, but I'm not sure how much potential it has for the kind of tonnage stuff that we're doing.
Oh, good Lord.
If you can't do a pre-concentration. On the other hand, I'd say something like an arsenal pyrite or a iron pyrite ore, where most of the gold is bound up in the pyrites, and you can concentrate the pyrites and then either roast them or just very, very finely pulverize them and react them. That might work out pretty well. I know that certain arsenal pyrite ores, it's very common for them to go pretty high grade, which could justify things like a heated leaching circuit. You know, yeah, I say that might be a real niche for it. Is because then you could either gravity or float the pyrites, and then if you had a 1 ounce per ton pyrite ore, and then throw it in the glycine after you've concentrated it 10 to 1. Now you got a 10 ounce per ton concentrate, and you can do some expensive stuff with that and still make good money. Yeah, Brian says one of the nice things is that it does not dissolve iron. So when you got a pyrite ore, it's very selective. You have any idea on arsenic, Brian? Because an arsenal pyrite would be interesting.
I'm hoping to get a hold of some to test.
Say we're working on getting some to test here pretty soon. Do you have any arsenal pyrite ore, Brian? Because my thought is we could arrange it so that we sent you some arsenal pyrite ore if you wanted to play around with it, or and say if you want to, take a little longer, we can play around with it ourselves later on.
Interesting.
Okay, Brian. What little one?
Claire Woodall Law that got fired finally. She was the one that printed 64,000 ballots in the back room at City Hall in Milwaukee and had random employees fill them out.
Well, did she go to jail?
She's been fired. She hasn't gone to jail yet.
Well, yeah, getting fired is a fine start, but 64,000 illegal ballots should be a lot more than that, a lot quicker than that.
Especially since Trump only lost that state by 20K.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So, anyhow, okay, I'll see what we can come up with this weekend there, and if you haven't sent me your mailing address, I presume you have my email. You can send it to my email, and then I can get some and send it off to you, and we can play a few games with it, because arsenal pyrite ores are fairly common, and it's a fairly common problem. So it would also be nice to see whether or not it dissolves the arsenic, and if it doesn't, then that has certain advantages too. Leaving it in the pulp would be good instead of putting it in the solution. So that could be very good. Thank you for the information initially, Jean-Francois. Appreciate it. Oh, man, I've been sitting around too much. Yeah, I mean, if you got high concentrations, that's pretty good. Have you checked to see whether or not the solution is electrically conductive? If it is, you might be able to direct electrowind from it also. Okay, let me see here, Jean-Francois. Just a second. Let me take a quick look at the tornado coverage. Yeah, Hennessy, Oklahoma. Interesting things going on there. Not a good situation over there. Jeez. Let's see. There's mail. Yeah, I see your email, Rock, with the introductions. Thank you. I see the package there. Is this a highly selective resin, or what's the situation there? Hi, Honey Bunny. Yeah, Brian, that's a good sign. Electrowinning is kind of nice because you get a pretty pure product there. Okay, I can check with those people too on the stuff. That I say that that glycine leach seems to me to sound pretty good for high concentration material, and we'll kind of go from there. Oh, let's see. Hold on just a second, folks. Oh, a little sleepy here. Anyhow, that's about it for this week. I did post the standard time version of the tour of that truck museum. Yeah, that sounds good, Jean-Francois. And I got some positive feedback on that. I hope that worked out. Oh, that's what it was. Now I remember. Oh, who was it here? David. Yeah, David. That's the comment you said was your dad, probably drove a lot of those trucks. And I asked you, is he still around? And if so, he might like that museum. It was quite the dealio, I'll tell you.
It was a gorgeous museum.
See, not sure what else is going to be going on real quickly, or just mainly getting that mill up and running. That's going to be the big deal. And testing out my bob mill again and making sure it's working. My concern is basically getting the dust collection set up. I really have no idea, Honey Bunny. My guess is Montana B should be accessible by now. Although we're so busy, we're not going to get to it for a couple weeks anyway. And that's first on the list. So I would anticipate that as soon as we're ready to go to it, it will be available. It's at a much lower elevation than top of the hill. And so that's the anticipation there. What's up, Buttercup? I don't know. It was snowing like a son of a gun last week, but it was melting on impact. Viva's got we got some good video when we're putting the mill back together again. We had snow flurries that, I mean, visibility was getting down to a quarter mile, something like that. But it wasn't very windy, and it was in the 40s. So no big deal.
Pretty.
Yeah, I heard that the Black Hills got a lot of snow too. Right now, the real severe weather is in Oklahoma and Kansas. They got tornadoes forming right now, and they're expecting a nasty tornado outbreak tonight. Multiple large, long track tornadoes. Wow, was that? I got another channel showing here. It's Ryan Hall, y'all, and I think.
Yeah, that's a tornado, dude.
He's moved around the radar so fast I wasn't sure, but it looked like, yeah, there's Sioux Falls, yeah.
Sioux Falls, South Dakota?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going all the way up into South Dakota with that severe weather. They got tornado warnings in Oklahoma and Kansas, and they got nasty weather all the way up into South Dakota. Goodness. Oh, well, you're most welcome, Shiny Rocks. Glad to help. And I feel a little self-conscious sometimes making those videos just of us driving around and everything. But I know that, you people like to kind of, keep an eye on what we're doing and stuff. And I know some of you kind of live vicariously a little bit with us. So I'm very happy to do so. Somewhere in Oklahoma, yeah, 9 inches in 3 hours along with tornadoes, baseball-sized hails.
Good grief. That's a little.
Yeah, all my watchers, I presume most of you are people, not robots. Say some of you just like to follow what we do, and other people are more focused on the mining and such. Yeah, Jean-Francois, that darn climate change is just messing things up. Well, Eva's apparently got access to her smartphone.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to give you a thumbs up. Get you up in the rankings, dude.
So, yeah. Hey, Red Wing. So, yeah, we got a TV star over there typing in. Oh, now, Eva said she didn't look good in the video. I thought she looked just fine.
I look like a manatee with a hangover. This is known.
Did you guys hear that?
Red Wing just put out a good video, apparently.
Red Wing. That's. Oops. That's not what I was looking to do. Let's do this. Nope. Red Wing, you're not the one in Zimbabwe, are you? Apparently they just had a big mine issue. Wow, that's some big gold. I presume that's hard rock. Let's make sure. I don't think I've subscribed to you yet. No. Okay, now I'm there. That's some pretty chunky stuff. It says main vein there. So yeah, that's going to be hard rock. That's some pretty big stuff. No, thank you, Jean-Francois. Jason really works hard. He's got a family. He's got, work to do and everything. And goodness gracious, that poor guy, he was up with us till, about 9:30 or something. He still had work, honeydews to do, and then get to work first thing in the morning, huh? Yeah, we like to have some fun rock, but yeah, I go along with it because I think it looks cool too. I think so also. I've noticed some other channels that have tried to work women in there, and usually it just doesn't seem to work too well. But Eva's really smart and on the ball on these things. And yeah, Jean-Francois, she doesn't edit these things. And so she tends to be jerkier and moving around faster than I do. I've learned to pan slowly and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly, Jean-Francois. He's got a lot of irons in the fire. It's tough for him. It's a lot easier for me. She has a Hello Kitty onesie too.
And a Hello Kitty backpack.
Yep.
And a Hello Kitty sleeping mask.
Yeah, she does
and
that.
Hello Kitty hair scrunchies.
Yeah, she.
I do not yet have a Hello Kitty T-shirt. I'm working on this.
Oh, but yeah, as I say, Jason, he works pretty hard. That's for sure. And he's doing a good job of building the channel and stuff. But he's earning it. I'm very happy that I've got someone that can really fill in for some of my weaknesses and also just be there as a safety person. Did you see that little one? Rock says,
yeah,
you're being pretty broad brush with that statement, given I have two daughters who are all over that Japanese crap. Oh, wasn't that kind of fun with those Mongolians out there at the Devil's Tower Rock? That was so unexpected. I have not personally worked with copper ores. I've been around the copper mining area for a long time, and so I'm familiar with all the basics. But no, I don't have a lot of experience with it.
I love those Mongolian dudes. They were cool.
Yeah. And you say it was so funny. I walked over there and I said, Mongolian? He goes, yeah, how did you know? I said, it seemed like, I just something in my head, And when I mentioned that as people had a rather significant impact on history in the past, he got a pretty wry grin on his face.
Mm-hmm. Whoa, that is some beautiful stuff on.
Yes, I did, Rock.
Right there.
I sure did. And I forgot exactly where it didn't lead too far or whatever, but I did mention that she's perfectly capable of using a bow and a sword. You know
I'll tell you,
what, little one?
that's some pretty stuff on Red Wings channel right there. Whew.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's some significant stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me of the stuff we saw at the Dakota Coin Shop.
Yeah, well, it looks like a lot of that. It's pretty flaky. Is that natural Red Wing or is that from the impact? It looks like you got a ball mill there, so that's my thought. A lot of that is mashing in the ball mill. Am I correct? Yeah, cleaned out the ball mill. Yeah. So those kind of flakes look like what you get in a ball mill. And that's a pretty good looking rock there. That's for sure.
It is gorgeous. I bet it would make good cabochons.
I would agree, honey bunny.
The lighter concentrated stuff on the side, if it polished well, that would make excellent.
Hard to tell. It might. That's an idea too, Red Wing.
Yeah, worth a crap ton of it that way.
Yeah, if you can sell specimen stuff, especially if it polishes good into cabochons and stuff, you might be able to make, a lot more money per ounce of gold that way.
Yeah, I would love to see that stuff slabbed.
Yeah. Have you done any testing to see how much you're losing in the tailings? Because if you got that much gold there, you got a lot of gold overall. That could be platinum. Try and heat it up with a propane torch. If it refuses to melt, it might very well be platinum. You can try putting it in nitric acid. I believe the platinum would be extremely resistant, but the silver will dissolve rapidly. Hey, Harry. Let's see. Platinum soluble in nitric acid.
I believe it is not. I
do
believe in aqua it causes a light color change, if I remember rightly.
Soluble in nitric. Gold and platinum resist nitric at all concentrations. Yeah, that'd be an easy test then. Put it in nitric acid, and if it dissolves, it's silver. If it's not, it's probably platinum. Yeah, that's a good idea, Red Wing. I would guess. I mean, even if you're getting 90% recovery, you probably still got some pretty interesting tailings left. It's always worth saving it if you've already got it. Yep. What the heck is Schwarzer's solution? Never heard. Well, I might have heard of it.
Ask a random geochemist. I'm sure we have one around somewhere.
Well, I just did. What the heck is Schwarzer's solution? I figure the guys that says, Harry says, use Schwarzer's solution. I presume he knows what the hell it is. I certainly don't recognize the name.
I don't either.
Yeah. I'm out.
But then again, I don't know much of anything. I'm just a random.
A silver test. That's a test of how strong your Schwartz is.
Okay. Well, then we definitely need that around here.
Oh, dearie. Let's see. Yeah, I'll have to look at those. Oh, let's see. Tomorrow is Tuesday, right? Let's see. So
Tomorrow's Tuesday, and we're spending all day in Missoula.
So we're supposed to leave no later than 8. Let's try 7:30. We just filled up the gas tank, right? So don't need to worry about that. Let's see. Let's see here. Clock. Need to leave at 8. I can do that. Now let's see. Change that. Edit. One thing I hate about this is it won't let me just type in a number. Don't ask me why. I would think if I wanted to go 59 or something like that, I could just, yeah, but I have to frickin' scroll through, which is stupid. Should be able to just type in the time. Okay. Time is okay. Select, save. Is it on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. Yeah. Schwartz be with you. Yep. Oh. So, I say tomorrow's all taken. Luckily, to help do this tomorrow, we got a little time. Eva's going to, between the appointments, Eva's going to check some silver shops there, and also there might be some parts in for Lauren's skid steer that we can pick up for him. Glad to help, Shiny. I agree. I want to get out working too, but right now I'm focusing on getting that mill done, which is fine with me. See? Everybody misses videos of you. You're the tinfoil hat goddess. What can I say? I thought she looked just fine. Yeah, she's like, why didn't you tell me that gray doesn't look good on me? There's this technological breakthrough that's been around for a while. It's called a mirror. If you want to know what you look like, well, use one.
If I did that, I would never leave the house. As a matter of fact, I would never crawl out from under the bed.
Not much room under this bed.
Oh, thank you for reminding me I'm fat. Okay, I see how you are. No. You're reminding me that I'm a land whale.
No, you'd have to be like 6 to get under that bed. Not a size 6, 6 years old. It's only got about 6 inches in it. But anyhow, so.
Enjoy him now, folks. He ain't long for this world.
If you guys want to get rid of me, just increase the life insurance and let Eva know. It's a top view of a pyramid. You know something? Now I'm motivated to make it work.
We've got a real whiteboard eraser,
Yeah. This one works better. So anyhow, but that, yeah, I really want to get that thing up and running. I got tons of ore there. I've also got quite a bit of that stuff from the, what do we call that? The dozer push? Or what did we call it? The dozer push?
I call it the dozer push.
Okay. And
I have a bunch of crystals left to clean.
And so I got a bunch of stuff from that was hand sorted because it was easy for Eva to hand sort it and everything. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to process there because I'm not sure what that quartz from the dozer push is going to run. It doesn't look like it's got anything of any significance, but it'll be interesting to test. Take care, Shiny.
Good night, Shiny.
So I say that we just got lots of stuff to do is all, and it'll be fun to getting to where I can actually do it. I'm going to have to remember to keep my eye on the wear parts in that crusher too, so that I can re-hard face them before anything goes horribly awry. Oh, Lauren's not going to be available much this summer. He's going to be working up in the mountains. So that'll be, I'll have to, with my stick welder, I can do it. I've done it before. I don't know. Can't think of much else at this point. I'm wondering if we actually hard faced those new wear plates. I'll have to take a look.
I believe you did. Last night, Chad.
Well, I made new wear plates for the crate because there were some places that it had no replaceable wear plates. So we made and installed them, and I think we would have hard faced them first, but I know that we were at Lauren's, so that would have required him to change wire. And so I'm just not certain. But anyhow, once I get ready to go, I'll take that cover plate off and look. It's not that hard with that one. I have no idea either. Pour les miracles, prévoir un délai. D-E-L-A-I-S. I don't know. But so that's about it. What's the difference between possible and plausible? Depends on who's doing the talking.
Well, as I said, I think Thomas Sowell was being like really optimistic and diplomatic. Bless his heart.
For miracles, plan for a delay, huh? So, hey, Lars, you actually are this time.
Hi, Lars.
What kind of weather are you getting down there? Have the glaciers started moving yet? Goodness, you've been having some radical weather for Southern California. Oh my goodness. Oh. Yeah, it was kind of funny seeing that crusher again. No glacier yet? Excellent. That's good. Hey, just out of curiosity, I know you're in kind of the northern part of the LA basin and everything, but the news reports we see show that things are going to hell in a handbasket in LA. Is any of that affecting where you're at, or is it primarily in other areas? What's the deal there? Oh, I'm so sleepy. It's so much more fun when I got something in particular to go on about. That makes sense to me, Lars. Yeah, I've seen that in English before too.
Yeah, I've seen that one in English.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, well, my brother's in Yuma, which is only 20 miles from the border, and he hasn't said it's causing him any real problems at this point. But he says there's like 50 buses a day moving out of Yuma with migrants on them. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting here. We got an interesting year ahead of us. Let's see.
I'm more interested in the plans for my lab.
Well, I'd like to get a much larger lab and one that's actually designed for I mean, you look at the lab in the we take the samples to.
Yeah.
One of those hoods would be nice. I mean, even Lauren's hood is a vast improvement over what you have to deal with.
Dude, I make regular offerings to the fairy god scientist. Someday the fairy god scientist will bless me with something other than a ghetto fabulous lab. It will happen. Maybe.
Well, something will happen here shortly.
2 crawlers. Wow.
Not sure what a cleat-track is. Take care, Harry. Okay, Jean-Francois, no problem. Beggars can't be choosers. We're happy with whatever does show up. A Cat 15. Boy, I have no idea what a Cat 15 is. It must have been before the, D9s and D6s and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm going to have to do some major stuff on that furnace pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I say we shall see what happens. That's. I'm not sure what I can do with that.
I do have some good news.
Oh, what?
I checked my crucibles.
Yeah.
It looks like I should be able to eke out another season from all the crucibles I have.
Good.
Penthouse, well, that's another issue. However,
So, I say, we got a lot of stuff. When I was putting that stripper back together again, a few little parts and this and that's like, okay, that's going to have to be replaced. It's little things, a stopper, a few other little things. No big deal. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to having gravity circuit too. Because, I say, with some of that stuff is pretty good. I'm really hoping we do well with something this season. Hit something that's got at least an ounce to the ton that we can mine a ton of ore in less than 2 days, or 2 days or less. Then we could be doing a ton per week or whatever. Pod de Wawa Isi. Is that basically whining? No Wawa here, huh? Yeah, no whining, huh? Oh, dearie. I don't know. So I can't really think of a whole lot else at this point. Let's see. Close that. Nothing critical there. Close that. I got to learn a little bit more on the. When Ryan comes here, I'll have him fix things up a little bit so I can see that. Let me see. Well, that's a heck of a hook echo. That's like a classic there. Junction City, Ogden. Yep. Come on, zoom out so I can see where you're looking at. Okay, that's Oklahoma there. Wow. Oh, there's some big storm systems there. Anyhow. Well, it's interesting, Jean-Francois, how different people from different areas and different cultures actually do think differently. It's hard for someone who hasn't had that experience to really grasp just how radically different some people do think. You know, stuff's about expect to be on top of you about 1 a.m. your time. Yeah, you're in Arkansas. You're not too far downwind. You take care, honey bunny. Make sure you've got your warning systems activated. Yeah, exactly, Jean-Francois. They think absolutely differently, which is, I say, it's difficult to comprehend if you haven't really seen it. Most people, when they look at other people, just see a reflection of themselves. And well, do you have any place to hunker down in, honey bunny? I mean, it doesn't take much to protect you from a tornado if it's pretty solid. We have a full basement. Well, at least you got a basement. Better than some people have. Yeah, it was funny when we were in Ohio at a convenience store. There was the restrooms had a thing, tornado shelter, you know. Okay, that's an interesting way of putting it. African thing is perpendicular to our own. Yeah, okay. Different space time, so to speak, huh? Yeah, the learning curve is not only steep, but it can be very expensive too. That's the problem with a lot of Americans, from what I've seen. They seem to think that our way is the only way, and that can get them into a heap of trouble in a big hurry. You know, you need to realize when you're in somebody else's country, it's somebody else's country. They make the rules. If they don't agree with what we do in the United States, you're in their country. They just had I don't know. There were three foreigners killed in Baja California last week. I forget. It was two Aussies, two brothers and a
two brothers and a friend.
Two brothers and a friend. I think they were all Aussies, and they died in Baja. They were murdered, and you can't help but wondering, did they just not know what they were doing was going to get them hurt? I mean, certainly there's times where just people just get murdered and it's not their fault or whatever. But other times it's like you didn't realize you weren't supposed to do that. You weren't supposed to be there.
Not necessarily. Look where they got murdered.
Yeah, that's really good, Jean-Francois. When you got something like the equivalent of Native Guide. I once went on a couple-day trip through Sonora, Mexico, kind of the rural area. And the guy I was with, he'd grown up there, and it was very educational to have someone who can tell me, how they think, how they view things, and like that. It was very, very interesting. Yeah, the ones who are protected by the law are Jean-Francois. Man, it's getting pretty crazy out there. Or like you live as the one with bad. I've heard of places like that too, honey bunny. Well, I see a silver hat behind me here. I will let the
Hi, everybody.
TV star take over.
There's a new number for you to write up there.
Just a minute.
Hi, everybody. At any rate.
What is it?
34 trillion T.
715.
134. And the rest is faster than light. What else is new? Hi. Yes, it is a crowning glory. As a matter of fact, I think it's almost long enough that I can do that I Dream of Genie hairstyle. I'm going to try it shortly. I hope it works so I can go blink. That'll be fun. Anywho. Absolutely nothing has gone on in the world. That's it for that. So let's talk about mining. But before we talk about mining, on the back there, a friend of mine has a YouTube channel called Culture of Currency. What he does is he teaches people how to stack silver, which would also apply to gold, and he gives you the history behind various sovereign coins, and he's beginning to get into generic rounds because he's listening to yours truly about the issue. He just now got to the point where his channel has created monetization, and he does a lot of giveaways, and the odds right now on giveaways are extraordinarily good because he does not get as much engagement as he will when he gets a little further along. But if anybody's interested in learning about coin collecting and watching somebody start building a good stack,
there you are,
he's a person to
Jean-Francois.
watch.
About 102,000 per capita.
Yeah. Pretty bizarre and unaccountable. If you want an actual per capita, let me give you a few other titles, a few other things off here. Debt per citizen at this moment, $103,120. Debt per taxpayer, $266,951. Don't even ask about the official government spending. It's positively ridiculous. We're going to ignore that. It's a very, very bad number. The worst number is the unfunded liabilities. 215 trillion with a T, 248 billion with a B, 880 million with an M, and the other numbers are going faster than light. So there we go.
That's over $1 million per cap, right?
Let's see here. It's got the number. Per citizen, 638,964. The goddess thinks they may be counting our 20-some-odd million illegal aliens in there to bring the number down. Just saying. It's a possibility. There is that. Good luck with that, Jean-Francois. Just saying, So far, I have seen no reasonable alternatives when it comes to anything except our usual legal tax avoidance. If you are a U.S. citizen and you have not checked on your withholding status in your paycheck job yet, you should do that. There's a calculator on the IRS website. You can use that to see what your expected liability is going to be. And you can adjust your withholdings anytime you want on your W-4. You do this so that as soon as you have paid what you think you owe, plus about $100, you change your withholdings so they're taking out zero. That way, you can keep your money in your pocket and you can turn it into silver and gold. Don't give the government interest-free loans. Very, very, very bad idea. I do not know if Canadians can do that, but you may have an option. One never knows. BHP bombshell puts South African mining in a hole. Well, let's go find out what this business is all about here. BHP has put South Africa and its mining sector on the spot. The $140 billion Australian group's ambitious swoop on rival Anglo American would see one of the Rainbow Nation's most familiar companies largely withdraw from the country more than 100 years after it was founded. The question is whether the government in Pretoria can stop the $39 billion transaction and whether it should. South African officials have so far given BHP's proposal a mixed reception. Wade Montashe, the country's mining minister, told Bloomberg he wouldn't support the deal. But President Cyril Ramaphosa's spokesperson described the approach as normal market activity. In reality, Pretoria has a host of reasons to be awkward. South African mining is in decline as a contribution of GDP. It has fallen from 21% in 1980 to 7.9% in 2022. The goddess has to wonder why that is. After all, it is one of the most mineral-rich places there is. I mean, really. Very mysterious, isn't it? The country's platinum, diamonds, coal, and iron are not integral materials to the all-important energy transition. Nice excuse there. Corruption scandals at state utility Eskom and issues at freight carrier Transnet have led to frequent electricity blackouts and problems for miners trying to get shipments out of the country. True, but another convenient excuse right there. Anglo, which was founded in Johannesburg in 1917, has tended to be more of a help to the government than a hindrance in dealing with these challenges. The London-listed group, currently run by CEO Duncan Wanblad, has invested $6 billion with a B in its home country in the last 5 years, including in educational products. It has also acts as a reliable counterparty in the mining sector's frequent labor disputes. BHP Chief Executive Mike Henry's planned deal would take a crowbar to this arrangement. The Australian group wants Anglo to spin off its controlling stakes in local mining companies, Anglo American Platinum, Amplats, and Kumba Iron Ore, which have a combined equity value of about $13 billion with a B. Except for nuggets like the domestic operations of its De Beers diamond unit, Anglo would effectively check out of South Africa. Really now. Henry has traveled to South Africa to make his case. Yet his initial brusque approach is striking because prominent political figures like Montashe already had reasons to dislike BHP. Oh, no. Really? After merging with domestic mining giant Billiton in 2001, the big Australian spun off most of its South African assets into a new company called South 32 in 2015. It did so under a cloud caused by revelations that Billiton had a secret decades-long contract to get cheap electricity from Eskom for its aluminum smelters. Ooh, boy. While stressing he was not expressing an official government position, Montashe told the Financial Times last month that the BHP Billiton merger never did much for South Africa, and his country's experience with BHP was not positive. Throw in the fact South Africa's holding national elections on May 29th, what passes for elections, there's a fertile backdrop for opposing a foreign takeover.
Understood, Jean-Francois.
The government also has means to do so, even though the country's public investment corporation owns only 7% of Anglo. South Africa's Competition Commission must approve all mergers and demergers and can use controversial public interest powers to nix a transaction, even if it lacks antitrust grounds. My. And I thought the U.S. had a monopoly on government overreach at the moment. Oh, yeah, that's right. We do when it comes to so-called developed nations. Just saying. Yet South Africa also has good reasons to be more even-handed. While the share of non-resident holdings of domestic government bonds has fallen from 40% 5 years ago to 25% now, the country would be ill-advised to spook foreign investors grappling with elevated global interest rates. Blocking a valid deal on spurious grounds may do just that. Throwing up regulatory roadblocks would also prompt other investors in South African assets to fret that they might not be able to get their money out. Well, golly gee, that would be rather inconvenient now, wouldn't it? So, we're not going to continue the discussion on this issue, but basically they're just going through the various ins and outs of ways to get around this to find out what's going on. But this is not the only case we're going to see in the international mining world of companies beginning to pull back and divest themselves and get into positions with lower counterparty risks, especially in Africa and in South America. At the same time, the Panda Patrol doesn't seem to be having the kind of feelings of unease that other people are having. As a matter of fact, they are continuing to make tremendous inroads around the world in securing critical minerals and interest therein. So we shall see what we shall saw. Just saying. A leadership battle is brewing at deep sea mining's regulatory body. Now, we're coming back to revisit this deep sea mining thing. You may remember the goddess told you a little while ago that they were planning to mine the bottom of the ocean for something or other, which the goddess thinks is a monumentally bad idea, by the way. I may not be a greenie weenie, but I do think it's a monumentally bad idea. Well, of course, there are regulatory agencies involved here, and apparently we now have a leadership battle brewing at them. The Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority. Wow. An International Seabed Authority has happened. Is set to run for a third term, leading the United Nations affiliated organization that regulates deep sea mining. As control of mineral resources used to make electric car batteries becomes the focus of a U.S.-China rivalry. The ISA's 168 member nations and the European Union will elect the next Secretary General at what's expected to be a pivotal meeting in July. Secretary General Michael Lodge, a UK lawyer, will be opposed by Brazilian marine scientist Leticia Carvalho. So let's see. A deep sea mining regulatory body is currently being run by a lawyer. And that lawyer is going to be opposed by a marine scientist. Well, for once, the goddess has to agree with that idea. I mean, really, the goddess actually believes that the only people who should be making regulations is scientists that are not encumbered by politics. But of course, I'm pretty sure that's not going to be the case here. Okay. In an election that will shape the future of deep sea mining, it comes as the ISA faces pressure to finish writing regulations that could allow mining to begin within the next 2 years. The choice of the next Secretary General could have significant economic and environmental consequences for deep sea mining if regulations are ultimately approved. The ISA's charter gives the person in that role authority over the operation of the organization's administrative arm, and the Secretary General negotiates contracts with mining companies. Lodge's candidacy emerged Sunday in a diplomatic note from ISA member state Kiribati, a small South Pacific island. Where the heck is Kiribati?
I don't know.
Well, apparently it exists somewhere in the South Pacific, okay? Kiribati. It apparently is a small South Pacific island nation.
I don't know.
Okay. That announced it would sponsor Lodge's nomination. Candidates for Secretary General are usually sponsored by their country of citizen. The UK sponsored Lodge's first term as Secretary General, though his election to a second term, which happened under a silent procedure during COVID, is less clear. Carvalho, an official with UN Environment Program in Nairobi, was likewise put forth by Brazil's delegate in March. Lodge's second four-year term is set to end in December. An ISA spokesperson declined to confirm Lodge is running for re-election. Officials from Kiribati did not respond to a request for comment. Kiribati considers Michael Lodge uniquely well-placed to continue the excellent work he has done to date. A lawyer.
Uniquely well-placed
To come up with scientific guidelines and regulations for protecting the delicate bio environment on the bottom of the
He's placed next to a big pile of money that he can move.
According to the diplomatic note the country sent to UN member nations, which was obtained by Bloomberg Green, Kiribati controls a mining concession, meaning it would receive royalties and other payments if seabed mining proceeds. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that has nothing whatsoever to do with this. No. If Carvalho is elected in July, she would likely represent a marked change from the administration of Lodge, who has disparaged environmental opposition to mining deep ocean ecosystems for valuable minerals and drawn criticism for his closeness to mining contractors that the ISA regulates. The UK in October called for a moratorium on deep-sea mining, joining 24 other ISA member nations that support a ban or a pause until the environmental impacts are understood. Normally, the goddess does not side with the environmental greenie-weenie types. Okay, this is well known. However, I really, really don't like this cavalier approach to deep-sea mining. Not in the least. We have not even begun to really see what's actually going on the bottom of the ocean. The goddess would love to see some multi-gabillionaire, Elon, if you're listening, that would be you. The goddess would love to see some multi-gabillionaire really start doing some deep sea research.
How about the companies that want to make money pay for the research?
That would be fine with me, except they'd have to have some actual scientists down there that were actually doing research that was not paid for play.
Yeah.
I don't trust them to do sane, sound research. I want to see what's really down there. I mean, there could be something really, really cool down there, okay? Let's face it, there's all kinds of really cool shit around, like that volcano. Did you guys read about that? On Antarctica, Mount Erebus. It spews out about 80 grams of gold flakes every day, just poof, as it's constantly erupting. It's showering Antarctica with gold. A gold volcano. Now, isn't that like freaking cool? Just saying. We never know. There may be gold volcanoes on the floor of the ocean for all we know. No idea at this moment. And if they're down there, who knows what the heck they're going to be doing down there. We all know these people have a tendency to like be a little bit cavalier in the kind of things they do. But yeah, in addition to volcanoes spewing gold in Antarctica, there's been a few other interesting things in the news this week, I believe. Let's see, what was it? There was something I was thinking of the other day. I was like, oh, I have to remember to tell the peeps. Well, if I remember, I remember. Oh, yeah, Donald Trump is thinking he might get himself thrown in jail to protect the Constitution. That the goddess very much approves of. Except for the fact that, he might get Epsteined. There is that. Oh, that's what I forgot. In case you missed it, a while back, Boeing had this whistleblower thing, and then the whistleblower kind of sort of committed suicide in the parking lot of his motel right after he had extended his stay and minutes before he was due in court to continue his whistleblowing testimony. He was found with a nice, neat suicide note and a nice, neat gun that had neatly fallen out of his hand in the perfect position in his car. Just saying. This always happens with suicides. We know this. Well, then another whistleblower came out. And he started testifying. Well, unfortunately, this past week, he died. The whole thing is rather bizarre because he suddenly, out of the blue, started feeling really sick. So we went to the emergency room and they took one look at him and they said, "Oh boy, we got to put you in the hospital." So they put him in the hospital. And next thing we hear, like less than a day later, his family finds out that he's in ICU with pneumonia and MRSA and possibly COVID and kidney failure. And he's on a respirator. And then he had a stroke. And then they were going to have to cut off his extremities, his hands and his feet, because they were turning black and rotting from like venous failure or something. And then he just up and died. And well, the doctor said they had never seen anything like it. Just entirely bizarre.
Nothing suspicious here.
Absolutely nothing suspicious here. Well, you know, in a strange case of something that might actually be the Streisand effect, we now have a report that 10 more whistleblowers are coming out of the woodwork to testify against Boeing. And if that wasn't quite enough, the FAA has announced that Boeing is in deep dookie because apparently the FAA has reason to believe that on a good number of those 787 Dreamliners that are kind of like fly in the friendly skies, so to speak, apparently the investigations that were supposed to be done on the places where the tail meets the fuselage.
Nothing important.
So nothing important, as Professor Hardrock says, just one of those little minor things. Apparently, they were never done. And apparently somebody was lying about the paperwork.
No.
This may or may not annoy the FAA. We shall see.
Depends on how much money they hand over.
And in other random news, 13 federal judges of various types put their names on a letter that said that they're not going to be hiring Columbia students or undergraduates unless Columbia really cleans house. Now, the big news there is there have been letters against Yale and Stanford over the last couple of years for the same kind of egregious BS that's going on now in smaller capacity. Those letters, only one or two judges had the nerve to put their names on them. This time, there were no anonymous judges. There's 13 names on there, and there are some big names on that list. Ooh, people is getting pissed. And you know, it's a good thing because it turns out that all of these funny protests that are going on, that are being put on by all these so-called pro-Palestinian groups on various college campuses, you know, the ones with the nice mass-printed signs and the matching tents and the coordinated movements and people with bullhorns blocking out areas and colors and sectors of responsibility, etc.
Purely random and spontaneous.
Even though they were purely random and spontaneous, it turns out that they all track back to some international Maoists and Marxist associations that are connected to the late Mr. Sisson, you know, the guy that tried to have George Bush assassinated. I'm sure that's just coincidence. You know, it's got to be. So why are we still listening to central planners? This is the economic question of the day. Before we look at this economic question, we will note that if you haven't seen the video that's running around, somebody actually bothered to talk to the chairman, the head economic advisor that's talking to Joe Biden recently. Yeah, the dude has an advanced degree in music. He has an advanced degree in music. And a minor in social work. And he knows nothing about economics of any kind.
Well, that's not important for an economics advisor.
Just saying. Oh, no, it's not at all important. But
Just
so why are we still listening to the central planners? Inquiring minds want to know. Confidence in institutions such as the Federal Reserve may be falling, but it hasn't fallen nearly as far or as fast as it should. True. Trillions of dollars, yen, euros, and yuan are invested according to central bank policy and propagandas, and it isn't going well. No shit, Sherlock. The U.S. economy is massively distorted, unhealthy, and hopelessly dependent on Fed stimulus. The finance, insurance, and real estate sectors of the economy have been overwhelming beneficiaries during the modern age of activist central banking. Those sectors have collectively doubled in size since 1947 as a percentage of gross domestic product. And they now account for just under 21% of the economy. Red alert, red alert, red alert, okay? More than one out of every $5 is generated by banks, brokerages, insurance, and realtors. People who produce nothing tangible. Again, red alert. Manufacturing has fallen from 25.6% of GDP in 1947 to just 10.3% in 2023. As a side note, if you're a chick, get into trades. Chicks are highly underrepresented in trades, and there are schools out there that will give you big money to punch a diversity ticket here. Okay? Meanwhile, government spending as a percentage of GDP has gone up nearly tenfold since the late 1920s and the dawning of the big government era during the Great Depression. All of this central planning has done wonders for growth in the government sector and for the FIRE economy. That's back to that financial, etc. The wealthy, with connections to government and Wall Street, have grown wealthier. But it has been a disaster for most Americans. During this period, American households have shifted from needing one income to needing two incomes. Housing is completely unaffordable for most Americans. Household debt has risen dramatically, along with every taxpayer's portion of the public sector debt. Number on the back wall there. Many Americans seem to be checking out. The rate of employment, the percentage of working age people actually working, is in steady decline, and more people are dependent on government assistance. The worst news is the average Americans will likely wind up holding the bag for all of the economic and monetary mismanagement. Financial assets are largely disconnected from economic fundamentals. They're dependent instead on Fed policy. Last week's rally in stock prices, based on surprisingly weak jobs data, is an example. It might have been bad news for businesses and job seekers, but money managers and trading algorithms ignored that and focused on rising odds of interest rate cuts. As a little side note, we tried to go to our local Dollar Tree yesterday, and they no longer have set hours. Their hours are now written with a magic marker on a piece of construction paper to be determined because they're that short staffed. And they were closed. So there. Central planners at the Fed have cultivated massive bubbles in stocks and real estate. Today, much of their efforts are on keeping these bubbles inflated, which means the U.S. economy and others are one or two policy errors away from disaster. If history repeats, it will be Wall Street and the well-connected who receive bailouts, not average Americans. Well, unless, of course, you're a student loan recipient and, you have a D after your name or something like that. The trouble is these errors may not be visible except for in hindsight. The goddess would disagree with that. We've all been able to see the errors since about 1913. We're being deliberately miseducated so that we ignore them or don't recognize them. Mm-hmm. Just saying. Fed officials assured us the U.S. economy was strong and housing was not in a bubble immediately prior to the 2008 financial collapse. The Japanese economy has languished for decades. Central bankers there have tried one stimulus program after the next for more than 30 years without success. Now the yen has collapsed to its lowest levels versus the U.S. dollar since 1990 when the malaise set in. Anyone who thinks central planners in the US or Europe or China are smarter or more capable than those in Japan are kidding themselves. American investors who might be counting the FOMC and economic policy advisors in Washington, D.C. to safeguard the U.S. economy think again. Just think again, people. Never ever trust those people, okay? Just saying. Stagflation warning, service economy contracts as prices rise. In case you missed it, we got another completely fantabulous set of numbers from our dearly beloved federal government here recently. All of them are utter complete bullshit. We're not even going to try, okay? In another stagflation warning sign, the U.S. service sector contracted in April, even as service prices rose. Bear in mind, any number you see from our government has been vastly manipulated. So if you're still seeing bad news, it's really bad, okay? If you're seeing good news, it ain't. If you're seeing bad news, it's really bad. The Institute for Supply Management's non-manufacturing PMI dropped to 49.4 in April, dipping from 51.4 in March. The expectation was for the index to increase to 52, based on bogus numbers. A PMI reading below 50 signals a contraction in the service economy. It was the lowest non-manufacturing PMI reading since December 2022. Service accounts for more than 2/3 of U.S. economic activity. Go back to what we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago. Financial activity now takes up over a quarter of our economy. Red alert, red alert, red alert. Manufacturing takes up less than 10% of our economy. Red alert, red alert, red alert. Services. Services account for more than 2/3 of U.S. economic activity. If you can't figure out that's a red alert, then the goddess figures you're probably beyond help at this point. Sorry. An index measuring new orders for service businesses dipped to 52.2 in April, falling from a March reading of 54.4. Meanwhile, production in the service sector plunged from 57.4 to 50.9. The last time the services production index fell that low was May 2020, in the early months of the pandemic. The survey's measure of services sector employment also fell, dropping from 48.5 in March to 45.9 in April. Even as the service economy contracts, prices are heating up. The survey's measure of business input prices jumped to 59.2 from 53.4 in March. This dovetails with CPI data that showed service price inflation increased to 5.27% in March. That was up from 4.95% in February. Service prices account for 57% of the CPI. Spoiler alert, the Fed is probably already eyeballing changing the basket that they use to calculate CPI. Okay, just so you know. There's a word for a combination of rising prices, lagging economic growth, and rising unemployment. Stagflation. Woo-hoo. And that's not a stag party, that's stagflation. After Federal Reserve FOMC meeting last week, Fed Chair Jerome Powell insisted there were no signs of stagflation. I really don't understand where concerns about stagflation are coming from. I don't see the stag or the flation.
Ooh.
Jerome Powell has spoken, folks. All is well. Just saying.
So eloquent.
You can certainly argue the economic picture is nothing like the stagflationary years of the 70s. Well, of course not. Our government figures were still relatively accurate during the stagflationary years of the 70s, okay?
Well, it's a different
But the
year.
warning signs are clearly there, as evidenced by the Services PMI report and other recent economic data. And the macroeconomic foundation has been set for a period of stagflation. We had an unprecedented amount of inflation created during the pandemic. The Federal Reserve alone injected nearly $5 trillion in new money into the economy. This is the definition of inflation. One of the consequences of monetary inflation is price inflation. They are different things. And despite the Fed's effort to quell price inflation, the central bank hasn't done enough. In fact, monetary policy remains loose by historic standards. That means the Fed continues to create inflation. But the Fed has hiked interest rates enough to break things in this dead riddle bubble economy. We're beginning to see the signs of economic stagflation, including the recent non manufacturing PMI, the first quarter GDP slowdown, and the April labor report. Powell's assurances notwithstanding, stagflation appears to be a very real possibility. Oh dear. Meanwhile, gold and silver are still on sale, people. Speaking of which, let's look what we got. Today, gold was at $2,327.20. Silver was at $27.44. Yes. And it is interesting to note, we don't often talk about collectible silver here, or collectible gold, because the goddess has zero interest in collectible gold. Gold is just, central bank money. Y'all can play around with that. We don't talk about collectible silver very often here. But I had an interesting footnote to add to my odyssey. You may have missed it, but as we were going across the country, I was stopping at all kinds of local coin shops. And at every single one, I asked one very important question. I am looking for 1981 U.S. assay strategic silver rounds that were produced by Continental Coin. Okay? Anybody who's been in silver a while has seen the U.S. Assay Office rounds and the Assay Office bars. They came out in 1981. They have a history of their own. It should be noted that across the country, I found zero, as in zero, in all the coin shops I stopped in. Everyone knew exactly what I was asking for. Everyone said they were highly sought after. Everyone said when they got them, it was basically like gone in 60 seconds type crap. They don't get them very often. Everybody was selling them for an enhanced premium, much as you'd expect to see on prospectors, for instance, or JM Freedom rounds, as another example here. Now, my personal local coin shop classes them in the generics category, which makes me very happy. A friend of mine down in Tucson also manages to get them classed in the generics category, which makes him very happy. So he was quite interested to hear that as I was going across the country, I discovered we were both getting a really good deal. Now, I have been saying for years that these little buggers are sleepers. They are what you want to grab when you find them at a good price and hold on to them for dear life. Usually, people ignore the goddess at their peril, and this is one of those cases, because when we were at the gun show the other day, which was really cool, by the way, lots of guns, lots of ammo, not much of anything else, actually. It was very odd in that regard. I picked up an absolutely gorgeous Motherlode Mint round from 1973. The one that is sitting over there, and the one that says, put your trust in silver. Don't get caught with your pants down. The one with the little outhouse on the back. I was so happy to get it because I got it for $10, less than it usually sells for. In the same case, that gentleman had one assay office round. And it was not in pristine condition. It was moderately toned. It was moderately worn. And it was $40. Yeah. My little sleeper may start taking off here. So, yeah, I'm keeping my eye open for more of those. Every time I see them at my local coin shop, I am grabbing them. And again, if you're interested in actually learning about the numismatic side of sovereign coinage or watching somebody approach stacking precious metals in a scientific manner, the dude you're going to want to follow is right back here on the board, because he buys a set amount of silver every month and he keeps track of what his silver is worth. Because there has been an ongoing question and an ongoing debate in the silver stacking world for a while. The goddess, of course. And again, people choose not to listen to me at my peril because I told everybody exactly how this research would go. People were saying, always buy generic buffaloes at the lowest possible price. You stack the weight. Other people were saying, no, 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 buy the ASCs, the Maples, the Krugs, the Brits, the Roos, the Phillies, buy the sovereign coinage because it's always going to appreciate in value faster. The goddess has always said, well, you're missing the point. If you want the best stack for trading purposes, for upgrading during a price bump like I did on our last trip, you get nice generics and you get some vintage generics. You get stuff that you have zero connection to that you can throw out the door when your dollar cost averaging puts you in a good position. Everything I traded on that last trip, we got for like $20 an ounce with premium included. I was able to trade up with a very, very minimal loss, like a 10% loss of weight. I was able to trade up to very high demand sovereign coinage. So I significantly increased the value of my stack. And sure enough, when old culture of currency there did the work on it, he discovered that, yeah, much to his shock and surprise, the sovereign coinage really did show a faster appreciation rate. So if you were looking at investing, if you are looking at silver and gold as an investment, as opposed to a store of wealth, then you want to go for your sovereign coinage. And it's like, yeah, abso-freaking-lutely you do. But of course, if you're like the goddess and you actually watch these things, go for the oddball generic rounds. And I'll tell you, I'm getting motivated enough in that department that I'm considering making a few videos of my own to teach people a little something about oddball generics because they're highly, highly underappreciated. And I was crowing when people were like, seriously? The U.S. Assay Office rounds are something people want? And I'm like, yeah, I told y'all they were sleepers. Maybe now you'll listen to me. It's not my fault nobody listens to me.
I agree they're going to try, Jean-Francois.
Now,
Yep, exactly.
in other related and oddball news, as we were going across the country, we also visited a whole hell of a lot of Walmarts. Okay? And in some of these Walmarts, there were two kinds of self-checkouts. There was the standard self-checkout, which had a couple of employees watching everybody like hawks and had closed circuit cameras and big TVs to show you that you were on candid camera. Then there was the scan and go self-checkouts for Walmart customers only. Now the goddess had heard about this rabid and ridiculous new innovation in the concept of a store. Now, before, Walmart just got smart and had customers doing the work that employees used to do without paying us for doing so. Now, Walmart's gone a step further. By golly, they now have your scan and go system for the Walmart Plus member who pays $98 a year. Apparently, if you store your debit card or your credit card in your Walmart Plus account, well, by golly, you can just scan your groceries and go. You don't even have to pull out the card to pay. They'll bill you. So now you're paying for the privilege of checking out your own groceries, but that's entirely beside the point because Walmart is now going to be removing self-checkout in some locations, and in others, they will only be going to Walmart Plus for self-checkout. Why? Well, the word starts with a T and ends with a T and has something to do with the fine art of the five-finger discount. Yes, indeedy, folks. Walmart has now discovered that about 25% of people, by their own admission, forget to scan an item in the self-checkout that is in their cart. Also, by their own admission, 19% of people using self-checkout deliberately steal things. Shocked, aren't you? The goddess is absolutely shocked, obviously. So now Walmart is pretty much beginning to decide that in those areas where they're having a serious problem with this issue, either they're going to get rid of self-checkout entirely and go back to making their employees do the work, which would be difficult in a lot of the Walmarts we went to because they were very, very understaffed, even, even at later times of the night. Or the only people who will be allowed to self-checkout are the ones that are paying $98 a year. So that was just something a little interesting that the goddess found out about. And it's like, yeah, that kind of says something. All of this goes back to the matter of employment or lack thereof. Because on one hand, you have our beloved federal government saying that we have some of the lowest unemployment rates we have ever had in the history of the United States. Well, when you actually start digging through the employment numbers, you discover that that's because a whole lot of people are holding 2 or 3 jobs plus a couple of side gigs that are self-employment. So that may have something to do with this. You also discover that anecdotally, it is becoming more and more vocalized on social media that companies who claim they're hiring for full-time are not giving anybody full-time hours for some bizarre and unaccountable reason. And then you see companies like our little Dollar Tree in town. Now, Dollar Tree and Family Dollar are now the same company. And they opened a Family Dollar about 100 yards from the Dollar Tree in Helena about a year and a half ago. That Family Dollar just got shut down. Like last month, they were shutting it down before we left on our trip. Now, you would think, since they're the same company, that the employees that were working at the Family Dollar would just toddle on over to the Dollar Tree 100 yards away, and the Dollar Tree would start having more than 1 or 2 employees in the store, and that they'd actually be able to be open the hours that they list on their door. This apparently was not the case. No idea why that is. But yeah, there's a lot of weirdness going on in the world, which is why the goddess is once again giving her usual advice. When you see good sales on commodities, turn your pretty colored toilet paper into actual usable stuff, like food or tools or home repairs or extra socks and underwear, since the quality control issues with socks and underwear are getting radical and ridiculous, okay? When in doubt, turn some of that nice, fancy-looking colored paper into silver and gold, because it's still on sale. It is still ridiculously underpriced. And the Fed's most recent actions have now added another couple of hundred banks to the high-risk list for having issues, which is not a good thing, by and large, okay? And you can expect that prices not only are not going to go down, we're going to see a continuance in things going up. Because let's face it, when these guys establish a new normal, that new normal ain't the ceiling. It's always going to be the floor. Even if everything is going beautifully, the new normal is always the floor. That's part of the whole Keynesian economy thing. This ain't a flaw, it's a feature, okay? So this is a time to be consolidating your positions. It's also a time to consider trying to move some stuff out of riskier positions if you can, because this stock market business is not going to last forever. I mean, considering the way things are going, these bubbles are going to break. So this is a good time to pay down debt. And remember, if you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about stuff has its own issues.
Oh yeah. Stuff does have its own issues, but I'll tell you, you're better off with stuff than you are with money sometimes.
Glosy, yeah. I never heard that one before, Jean-Francois. No, yeah, that's one reason I feel a little more comfortable that we have not nearly as much stuff as a lot of people. Uh, it's a different way of living, but it can work. I think one thing everyone needs to do is I think it was Lavoisier once said, from time to time, it is good for one to examine his assumptions. And I think that's good. It's like, well, this is the way it has to be done. Well, really? What's your backup plan if that doesn't work? You know? That's not bad if you know how to sail it and everything, Jean-Francois. On the other hand, you have to be able to maintain it and stuff. And so that is one of those things that could work for some people and not for others. Yeah, I agree. Jean-Francois, he got guillotined and he also did an experiment when he died. Yep. So it's a very, very interesting time frame we're living in. Yep, exactly, Jean-Francois. So we'll find out one way or the other. Back to what we're doing here. I want to thank you, Jean-Francois, for the suggestion on the glycine. It looks like Brian is doing some serious testing on that, and we can build on that and see what we can do. Looking forward to getting the mill up and running and making stuff happen. Hey, Mr. Virtue, how's it going? And we'll be trying a lot of sluicing techniques in particular at the present time because that's what we got set up for. I also have a gravity separation piece of equipment which I can try, but we shall see whether it's necessary with the leaching finish for the tailings. It may not make a lot of sense. The simplest thing might be a fairly efficient, really low complexity gravity separation, like a precision sluice. And that is a interesting possibility. But let's say right now we're going to be doing some stuff. We're going to see about doing some experiments with some arsenopyrite also, and gathering some basic information on that, maybe helping somebody out with a arsenopyrite ore. Well, we got, if you want to know the gravity separation device I made, you need to go back about a year or two. I called it the TRIP concentrator, TRIPP, at Matt Tripp. And James West wants to know if you like Bitcoin or not, little one.
I don't believe in it. That doesn't stop me from having some, but I would not spend money on it. All of my cryptos and altcoins I got, I accidentally acquired.
Eva's not a fan, but she doesn't have a strong opinion on it either, James. I would think that the government is going to be very jealous of competition and therefore it could be problematic in the United States. It appears that the world economic system is kind of bifurcating into the West and the BRICS, and the U.S. government's not going to have near the control globally that it used to, and we're really ticking people off. I don't know if you heard the recent statements by Russia. Yeah, but things like Putin said, "What's the use of a world if Russia isn't in it?" is not conducive to thinking that, yeah, he's gonna, bend over and kiss the ass.
Conduct nuclear tests now.
Yeah, and he's ordered his forces to come to full readiness on tactical nuclear weapons, and yeah, I say apparently, if the West continues to keep pushing in Ukraine, he'll continue to push back until things get real unpleasant or somebody breaks. And Putin doesn't look like he's ready to break. So economically, this could get real interesting if a large portion of the world doesn't go along with the what is that? The Bretton Woods system. Could get interesting. Aside from that, I mean, what can you do? You just keep plugging along. You have your contingency plans ready, and assume that things are not going to stay the way they are. I would agree, Jean-Francois. And I don't think that's necessarily a great thing to say about Russia, but it's a very sad commentary on the United States. Let me put it that way. I don't think we have a free country anymore. It's, I don't know, call it a soft dictatorship where it's not overtly stated, but
good Lord.
What little one?
Oh, it looks like Lord Malarkey has done given Nancy Pelosi the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah, who cares? They can pat themselves on the back all they want. If someone with the power of Donald Trump can be prosecuted without a good legitimate reason, so can you. And I agree, Jean-Francois. If you get more prosperous, the government mob will come after you. Exactly. Yeah, well, talk is cheap. It didn't work real well the time we tried it, but I believe we did not have it adjusted right. Okay, sports. I think, it did a great job of grabbing a whole bunch of tramp iron. And that would indicate to me that if it was adjusted properly, it would probably do a pretty good job on the gold. But I can't give a definitive answer to that. But I like it in general. And we shall see how it works out once he's got it developed. Nothing ever works super great initially in development. It always takes a little tweaking. And in that case, I think we just weren't running enough water through it. I think if we'd run more water, it would have done a better job at recovering gold. Didn't do bad as it was, but it just got full of magnetics. And that could have been easily mitigated by simply putting a magnet over the input and plucking that stuff out real quick. Agreed, honey bunny. So that's another thing we may be doing. One of the problems when you grind up rock is it also grind up the metal parts in your grinder. So you tend to wind up with a lot of magnetic material that's also very dense. On the other hand, it's also extremely easy to remove with a magnet. Yep, correct, honey bunny. We've got some electrolytic debris right now that Eva's gotten some nitric acid just as a kind of an experiment to see how pure we can make that. It should be pretty darn good.
When next we get out to the lab, I want to stick it in my heater.
Yeah. So we shall see what happens there. But we're thinking what we might do is on a routine basis when we produce, when we plate the gold out of the stripping solution, is to do a nitric acid digestion on that debris first, and then take that nitric acid and cement any silver out of it with copper later. So we'll have a pretty darn pure gold debris, and we'll wind up with a pretty pure silver debris too. That's our evil plan. You know, I don't see any way we're going to come out of this one smelling like a rose, Mr. Virtue. And it could get, as that admiral said in Hunt for Red October, this is going to get completely out of hand. It easily could. So we shall have to see. According to a recent report, the French Foreign Legion is already putting troops on the Ukrainian front line. And Russia, some high-level Russian guy said, well, we're checking that out. We can't confirm that, but if NATO's putting combat troops in there, things are going to get things are going to get real ugly, and not just in Ukraine. You know, I'm sure we do, honey bunny, but at this point, they haven't been like put on the front lines officially. So when Russia does manage to whack the areas that they're at, we don't kind of admit that they got whacked. Jean-Francois, nitric will dissolve palladium. Why not drop silver as silver chloride? It has been our experience in some relatively limited testing that we get significant losses when we smelt the silver chloride back down to silver. However, when we cement the silver on copper, we have lower losses, and that's it. It's and a lot of what we use the silver that we cement for is inquarting silver, and it's already in finely divided form, which is perfect for inquarting. So we found out that for our purposes to date, it works very, very well just to cement it on copper once the nitric acid is pretty sad. I mean, when it's crystallizing silver nitrate crystals. Yeah, I saw that one, Jean-Francois. As I've also watched Street Tips just simply cemented on copper too. Either one works.
And we also tried that thing he did where we made the silver on the inside of the glass.
I don't recall the specific thing, little one, but I believe it.
Using sugar.
Yeah,
and
sugar.
It coated the inside of the beaker with silver, so it turned the beaker into a mirror, which was so cool.
Yeah. Have you ever calculated all-in cost for a semi-scale 1 ton per hour leach Eco Goldex system? By calculated the all-in costs, do you mean the capital or the operating costs, Sports? Um, the system we have is theoretically capable of doing about 1 ton per day, or the equivalent of no more than about 2 tons a day crushing and grinding. And the agitation tank can only hold about 1 ton of solids with solution. So at a 1 ton per batch system, which takes us about a minimum of 4 hours and more normally 6 to 8 hours. No, I have not, honey bunny. The capital cost for new equipment is probably in the neighborhood, because we didn't use new equipment, probably in the neighborhood of $20,000. Call it 500 pounds per hour maximum. That's with an RC46. I would not use that as a primary crusher if I didn't already have it, and I can use it for other stuff too. A 4x6 jaw should only be a few $1,000s if you buy a cheap Chinese one. More if you buy a more expensive, better quality one. But the crushing and grinding, that's the big expense. The 1 ton per batch agitation tank, that was about $1,500. The 3 pumps in it are about $300 with a few pieces of pipe and everything is needed to turn them into agitation pumps. By using a pad for dewatering and stuff, another couple $1,000s. So you should be able to do it for, $5,000 to $10,000. In our case, James, we have less in silver than we do have in gold, and we're running so far 1 ounce per ton of gold or less. Okay. In the operating costs, the cost for Eco Goldex is running about $20 a ton. Currently, the resin costs are running in the neighborhood of 1 pound. I'd have to look it up, but $10 to $20 an ounce. And the stripping costs, that's running a few dollars per ounce. Okay. So, and that's chemical consumption basically. So overall, we're less than $50 a ton operating cost if you exclude crushing and grinding.
And if you exclude energy. You're excluding energy there. You did not include.
Well, it would depend on whether you had line power or you had to generate it. We have to generate it. With line power, it would be almost insignificant.
Yeah, but I would say we should go worst case scenario and go with generator power.
So if you're using generator power and stuff, I don't know, we use less than $5 gallons a day. Say about 3 gallons a day, and we only operate 6 to 8 hours a day. We do not leave the generator running when we are not there. Well, you would have to test a number of factors to determine the details of the extraction circuit. This would depend on things like how much easily gravity separates, how much dissolves how fast in the Eco Goldex, and things like that. 50% gravity separates. You'd have to see what the residence time was or the column leach times in the rest of it were. But again, I would say that you, excluding crushing and grinding costs, less than $50 a ton. And I'm working on some ideas on how to drastically cut the cost of the agitation tank. And we could talk about that in terms of helping out. Where are you located at, Sports? Is it something that's fairly easy to get to? Is it a long way from me? Things like that. Wyoming, that's not too far away, I wouldn't think. From Helena, within about a 250-mile range, Sports?
I'd like to go to Wyoming. Does he have fossils? I like fossils.
Eva wants to know, you got fossils? She likes fossils.
I don't even need big fossils. Not even dinosaurs. Little ammonites. Ammonites are nice. Trilobites are nice. Little seashells. Ferns.
But say that's something that we could discuss in some more detail. But the first thing you have to do is actually run some laboratory scale tests. For example, your reagent consumption and the leach kinetics are very, very dependent on the actual mineralogy of the ore. Is it an acid ore, a basic ore? Is there a lot of crystal lock? Is it fairly simple? Is there a lot of complicated stuff? Very difficult to make any kind of definitive answer without a significant amount more information and confirmation testing. But that should be doable without a great deal of expenditure.
I want to go to Wyoming.
Okay, little one. So as I say, you've got my email, I think. So if you can email me, we can just, we can get phone numbers. And I like talking on a phone simply because the bandwidth is so much greater. Certainly email is useful, but you can get 100 times the information transfer per unit of time by simply having a telephone conversation. But it's a deal. I say the leach system cost at 5 to 10 tons per day. That would be something where I say my ideas on a much cheaper agitation tank. Again, you may not need an agitation tank. You might be able to do it with a pad leach or a heap leach. But these things, as I say, it just depends. I used to work at a gold mine where everything was in our favor and we made money hand over fist on low grade ore because everything just worked better than the industry standard. Everything. We didn't have to crush. We still got 85% recovery out of a heap leach, etc. So you really have to check these things. Sometimes you run into, what you might call deal breakers. And other times just like, boy, this is easy. I wish they were all that easy. So yeah, say we'd need to do some testing and such. So, get in touch with me. And we'll go ahead and, talk out the details and go from there. But it sounds interesting and potentially doable. So, I say, send me an email and we'll talk it over in a lot more detail. But that it sounds doable. Okay. That's the leaching system cost is probably $1,000 to $2,000 per tons per day. Capital cost and about $50 a ton operating cost, mainly chemicals and such. So if you've got a decent grade ore, as in something in the neighborhood of half an ounce to an ounce per ton, and you're only getting 50% by gravity extraction, it should make sense. Okay, just kind of some rough off the cuff numbers. Does that help you there, sports? Okay. I say we'll talk it over in a little more detail and go from there and see what we can come up with. Okay. I say I've got some ideas on how to make a really inexpensive agitation tank. It should work pretty well, pretty easily. So we'll work on that. Air bubbles could be part of the system. Yeah, I say it would all depend on basically whether the leaching works pretty much standard, i.e. no weirdness and deal breakers there, and whether or not you require a long retention time in the agitation, and whether or not you get good recoveries on a leach pad where you send it out and just let it sit there for a while. Say if your kinetics work well, it shouldn't be very expensive at all. And I've worked the problem mentally before, and yeah, that's not a bad idea, honey bunny. I agree. But these are some of the things that we should be able to deal reasonably cost-wise. Oh, you betcha they can. No, I am not familiar with flotation and anything except the most basic theory. I have not done any flotation. I haven't been involved in flotation. I do not have any real expertise in flotation. Oh, yeah, a lot of people will give it to you if you haul it away, honey bunny. I don't know how many hot tubs we've cut up in Tucson and hauled to the dump when I was working for the home repair and remodel, but it's in the neighborhood of 3 or 4. Yep. So it's one of those deals that we can do something. A hot tub could be used as a leaching tank, probably. Don't see why not. You'd have to modify the nozzles a little bit, But I have another idea that where the tank becomes the cheapest part of the system, the agitation becomes the most expensive thing. It would have to be tough enough, honey bunny. Give you a hint. My idea involves a trench dug in the ground and lined with plastic, and then you put an agitation pipe down the middle of the trench. How cheap is it to build a trench and line it with plastic? See what I mean? And you can make that a lot bigger, a lot cheaper. I mean, you can dig a fairly big trench fairly cheap and then just line it with a really tough plastic. And they make some really tough plastics nowadays. And voila, you know. So that's kind of my thought in terms of something that is low cost and yet could scale up pretty dramatically. You could, depending on your physical constraints, you could make the trench as long as you wanted and increase your retention time. You just have to have more agitation along it. My brother was working on a job about 1 year ago where they were installing plastic in the neighborhood of 70 mils or something. He says you couldn't stick a knife through it. You know, you could just wouldn't go. And they didn't have to do much in the way of cushion. If you're using an agitation trench, Jean-Francois, by the very nature of it, it's only going to have sand and fine sand in it, basically powdered stuff. So you could put a geotextile underneath the liner, then put in the liner, and then just lay in an agitation plumbing system. You know, the idea of air injection from what do you call them? Oh goodness, hot tubs is fine. You can also just get bigger blowers and do stuff. Whether you simply just blow the air or whether you use some kind of an airlift system like a Pachuca tank, you know, there's a lot of things. Yeah, but you could probably if you've got a pipe that's, say, vibrating a little bit and has sand around it, if you have a geotextile under it, then it might be moving the geotextile and doing what abrasion is possible. I agree, the HDP liners are pretty abrasion resistant to begin with, and it would be very easy to put something underneath that liner to take the what minimal abrasion is there so you can replace it if needed or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do there. But my thought is if you had a blower, you're going to need air orifices that have a valve seal, you know, like one of those rubber things that when you put your air through it or whatever, it opens up, and then when you stop, it seals itself off. Something like that. And then if you had pipe above that, then it becomes an airlift. Do you need the pipe above it? I don't know. But you could certainly do that if you needed to. And let's say these are the duckbill valves. Sounds exactly like what I'm talking about. But you see my basic idea. You just dig a trench, put a geotextile, put a liner, lay a pipe down there, hook up your blower, boom, there you go. You could also hook up a pump. If excessive oxygenation or something is a problem, you could hook up a liquid pump. You know, there's all kinds of possibilities. If you have a long trench and you're putting in slurry at one end and you're using air agitation, and the other end is just an overflow onto a pad, then as you put material in at one end, it's going to work its way to the other end. let's say in the case of Sports's theory, you want a 10-ton volume trench, okay? And you can achieve your agitation objectives in one day. Well, you throw in 10 tons of crushed ore and 20 tons of solution in the trench during an 8-hour shift or whatever, and then you let it agitate overnight, and then you just start doing the next thing the next day, and the stuff will just kind of push the treated stuff out without any further material handling effort required. Gravity works, you know? And I say there's all kinds of possibilities depending upon the exact chemistry and what works well and what doesn't. Do you want to put in an insulating layer underneath the plastic and cover it with like a floating pool cover to retain heat? When you're using a pump to agitate, well, you're putting energy in. If you're well enough insulated, you can raise the temperature. Yeah, you can't use brass. You'd have to go, plastic is good, or rubber coated iron or cast iron should work. Nope. Stainless steel's bad, honey bunny. No, not with the Eco Goldex. It cements the gold onto the stainless steel. We found that out. You put stainless in there, it gets gold coated.
And brass.
Yeah. Carbon steel, cast iron or something shouldn't be a problem. And plastic, you're just going to wear it out quicker if you're pumping slurry. But yeah, again, shouldn't be a problem. The other thing is, if you're running a generator and if you want to increase the temperature of the leaching solution, you could use the exhaust as a source of heat to heat your solution. You could theoretically, for example, if you had a liquid pump that was running jets underneath, then you could run it through a heat exchanger on the way to the jet pipe underneath. And then with insulation, for something like that, you could take just styrofoam sheet and use that to line your trench. You can 2-inch styrofoam, 1-inch styrofoam, something like that would be pretty good insulation. Lay your plastic liner on top of that. And then, you could just, you could dig your trench, basically smooth it and pack it, and then lay sheets of styrofoam in there and just use duct tape to tape them together so that they don't shift around. Yep. And so then you just cover that with your heavy duty liner and voila, you're in business. Yeah. Yes. I'm using currently a resin recovery system where the leaching solution runs through resin and then we strip the resin. Okay. The electrowinning is done in the stripping circuit. The resin itself is taken out of circuit, put into a different chemical environment at elevated temperatures, and then that solution is then put through an electrolytic cell. And it's essentially a concentration step. We tried initially direct electrowinning. It did not work well. It may just be a matter of conductivity of the solution. We were running a relatively low pH because that did the best dissolution. And as such, we didn't get very much electrical conductivity. So direct electrowinning didn't work too well. The other thing is you can use a lot of resin, in a cartridge and run a lot of solution flow through that fairly easily. So you can get good scale in terms of solution flow. Then you can take that out of that circuit and do much lower solution flows in the stripping circuit. Another potentially advantageous phenomenon is the resin is not easy to sell or deal with, so it's less subject to theft if that's a concern. And then all you would really have to do is keep the stripping circuit under tight security control, if you see what I'm saying. That may or may not be an issue in your thing. If you had high enough conductivity, one thing one could experiment with is, for example, using sodium hydroxide as your primary pH control. It might be possible to get direct electrowinning. If you had a high enough pH, if that doesn't affect your dissolution or some other issue of the kinetics, might be fine to do direct electrowinning. In other countries, they use cementation on zinc shavings as their extraction out of the leaching solution. And then you dissolve the zinc and smelt the residue. The problem with zinc shavings is, of course, it's very susceptible to theft. Plus, it's somewhat susceptible to losses. There's ways you have to build these things so that any small particles of gold and zinc and stuff don't wash back into the tank, etc. But I say those are all different things. $2 per ton per throughput. Okay. It takes you $2 of equipment per $2,000 of equipment per ton per hour of throughput, or ton per day of throughput. Okay. That's not the operating cost of the equipment. That's the capital cost of the equipment. If you want a 10 ton per day mill, look at about $20,000. Okay. You should be able to build it for that. To get something with a processing, with a capital cost of $20,000 should do 10 tons per day. Okay. And when you're doing that, it's only costing you about $50 a ton for the processing. I think you can probably get your crushing and grinding into that number too, but I'm being a little conservative here. Again, you need to do tests to get decent numbers to do your extrapolations, but $2,000 of capital cost per ton per day of plant, $50 per ton actual milling cost for the leaching and recovery circuit. I suspect you might be able to, get the crushing and grinding involved in that and still get it around $50 a ton, or maybe not much more than that. Okay. So thank you for asking the question. Because $2,000 per ton is just a ridiculous cost if that's what it was costing to process it. No, that's just capital expenditure per ton per day of throughput. Okay. But I say these are the sort of things that you would actually need to test. And since, again, this would be somewhat prototyping, hard to tell. $400 per ton at 1 gram per ton? That doesn't pencil out. I think you might have made a typo there, or I'm misreading it somewhere. Okay. $400 per ton crushing cost can certainly happen, but I think you'd be looking at like 10 grams per ton to make that profitable. that correct, Jean-Francois? $400 per ounce. Okay. 1 gram per ton is the actual ore grade, and your cost to get an ounce of gold is $400 per ounce, which means, of course, about $1,600 plus per ounce profit. Yeah. Say these things are possible. When you're talking a heap leach, that's quite possible. At the mine I worked at in the 1980s, our mining cost was $1 a ton for open pit, and our heap leaching cost was about $5 per ton. Total cost, building the heap, building the pad, loading the pad, leaching the pad, etc. So it can certainly be done. Say these are the sort of things that, it's plausible. A lot of the issues may be in the permitting area, and there's a lot of things that will dissolve gold. The question is, what is the easiest method? In other words, it can't be real persnickety, or it can be difficult. And what's the cheapest way of doing it? That wouldn't surprise me at all, Jean-Francois. Crushing costs tend to be pretty high. In our case, it was, constructing the pads, putting the liners on, the cushion on, blah, 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 stacking the ore. The actual leaching itself is pretty cheap. You just pumping liquid and replenishing chemicals that are consumed in general. And then we were using carbon adsorption. So then we had a stripping circuit to strip the carbon. We had, I think we had 1,000 pounds of carbon each in 4 columns, as I recall. I think it was 1,000 pounds of carbon each. But anyhow, I say these are the sort of things that seem plausible. Again, a lot of this has to do with permitting, and that is very much locally dependent. A lot of the stuff is dependent on the actual ore chemistry, which is idiosyncratic. For example, if you wanted to use an acid thiourea leach, you would not want to try and use it on a limestone-based ore. It's going to get real expensive in the acid phase. If you had a high acid ore, then you might find something like Eco Goldex. It's not the Eco Goldex you're running. It's the damn lime and stuff are just killing you. And it may take forever to neutralize the ore. So it might be better to go to an acid thiourea leach. These are some of the factors that you have to take into account when designing it, and those are best verified through actual laboratory and pilot scale testing. You look at it theoretically first and say, does this make any sense at all? A lot of things you can rule out, and other things you say, well, if it works, this works better than that. Yes, we usually buy our cupels from Legend in Reno, Nevada, and I do not have them on this computer. I've got them on this computer. This is one of the things I need to switch over. So let's see, do this. Go to Legend. Okay, there they are. Grab their thing, Control C. Add an email. I need to do this anyhow. I need to get it out of this one. New mail to Hard Rock U. That would be me. Control V. There we go. Send it. Yes, send it. Now go over to here. Yeah, they sell them by the case. Let's see. Now I need to open this up. Well, it's fun because one's got Outlook, one's got Firefox. Go to my inbox over here. There it is there. There it is there. Okay. Control C. Let's go ahead and star this while I'm at it. Yep. Then come back here. Take care, Jean-Francois. Thank you for coming by. Control V. And there you go. There's the link there. Cheap is a relative term, Brian, but it's about as good a price as you can get. Now, have you seen our methodology using the crucipels that we use? Because we made a video on using old crucibles and filling them with Portland cement. And that works good in a lot of cases. I don't know if I'd want to do that for precision assaying, but in terms of refining and stuff, it works just fine. You know, and it'll suck a lot of lead out of the button really cheap. So if it was just for like refining stuff, I do that. Yeah. We took crucibles and we just fill them with Portland cement and then take an electric insulator. You could do it any round ball type thing and just press the surface in there and voila, done. Then you just empty it out and refill it. Yep. Where we got the idea. Silica is not, that's just quartz, 28%. I've seen a lot more than that. Silica is pretty much inert. It doesn't do much chemically. That's not going to be a problem chemically. But again, you're going to want to do a multi-element analysis to see what other elements are in there, both for information and for potential hazards. You know, for example, what is that? Thallium. Sometimes gold is associated with thallium. Thallium is very toxic. So modest quantities of thallium can be a real problem, but it's not very noticeable otherwise. Albite. Let me look that one up. Remember, I understand the feldspars. Pelagic. Okay, it's a feldspar. Yeah, those shouldn't be a problem. I said those are all pretty inert minerals. It's the other stuff that may be in there also that's the significant issues or potential significant issues. So you're going to want to do a multi-element analysis if you haven't already of the appropriate representative samples. That would be one of the preliminary things. There you go. I say those are some of the things. That'll help you a lot on the basic theory. Looking for dangers or deal breakers, and then from there you can either find someone who's a real expert at chemistry or just try it and see what happens. It's usually cheaper to try it and see what happens. You can usually do that pretty cheap. So, and the other thing is sometimes it works a little different than the theory says it ought to. Like the guy who did who makes the Eco Gold X told us 11 to 11.5 for the pH. We found the kinetics were better at 10 to 10.5. Saves us a lot of lime. As a matter of fact, quite often, we don't hardly add any lime to a batch.
I have actually had more than a few batches where we added 0.
Yeah, because the Eco Gold X itself has something in it, I presume, lye, sodium hydroxide. But I mean, it has a fairly strong base in it somewhere anyhow. Hey, Brian. And so, therefore, you have enough to get it to 10. I mean, we want it over 10. We don't like it over 10.5, but that's not super critical. And so we're, quite often we can get it above 10 with just the Eco Gold X once we've got solution already made. It's quite often not a big problem. And again, that comes from stuff. Exactly, Brian. It doesn't. It's already got it in it. So if you have a basic or a neutral ore, you're not looking to use much hydroxide to bring that pH up. On the other hand, if you had an acidic ore, you might need to use a lot to bring it up. And you might be better off using like sodium hydroxide, which would tend to work faster, as opposed to a lime, which is a lot cheaper and safer to handle. Interesting, Brian. Yeah, see, this is what you do with hands-on testing. The theory is nice, but I think it was Yogi Berra said, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is. Theory gets you so far, but it doesn't get you past the unknown unknowns. There are some things you're not sure of, but you got to get at. And there's other things that'll just hit you from out of left field because you were completely unaware that could possibly happen. And if you didn't know, it doesn't matter. It'll tell you if you try it. Like, the idea that gold would vaporize out of the resin. Yeah, we didn't think that. It does. When you dry it, it does. I mean, even at slightly elevated temperatures, like 145 degrees, you're still losing like 20% of the gold to volatilization.
With our particular ore.
I mean, that's what we ran into. I told the people at Montana Tech, and she said, that's not possible. Okay. It's not possible, huh? Fine. You tell me where the frickin' gold went. I even offered to send her a paper from the, was it U.S. Bureau of Mines or was it
the Bureau of Mines?
Yeah, U.S. Bureau of Mines.
Possible.
Where they found, yeah, exactly, Brian, that said that gold chloride, if you just had gold chloride and a silica sand matrix and heated it to 400 degrees, you'd lose about 5% of the gold. If you threw a little iron pyrite in there, you're going to lose 95% of the gold to vaporization. Who'd have thunk it? Right?
I might remind you.
It's real. Say, people, don't respect the complexity of reality. Well, that can't happen. Are you certain?
I told you I thought it was going up the chimney. You didn't believe me.
I didn't think it was plausible, but it was something we checked, and yep, it happened. You know? So, as I say, these are the sort of things, the simplest way is to just do it. It doesn't matter how much theory you have. It doesn't matter how bright you are, how little theory you have. It either works or it doesn't work. It consumes so much chemicals during the test. It takes so long to get so much of the gold. There's so much left in the tailings. These sort of things. Okay? Just measure it. Try it and measure it. That'll give you the answer. You know? That's what I like about SpaceX. Is they just go, well, we think it'll work. Let's see what happens. Boom. Oh, what went wrong? What failed? Okay. Fix that. It's simple and quick. And in many cases, it's cheaper in the long run. What kind of wrong gold leaf did you use, Brian? What does that mean? But anyhow, that's kind of the way I work. Sports, part of it is a necessity. I'm not an amazing theoretician, chemist, extractive metallurgist, etc. I'm a miner. Interesting, Brian. It's probably got a slight coating to it or something, huh? It could have a very, very thin plastic coating or something on it. Ah, copper, huh? Yeah, you'd want the 24 karat kind. But anyhow, oh, I wouldn't say that, but I do have fun, honey bunny. We do have fun. Okay. I'm getting a little bit tired here. Does anyone have any more questions or whatever? So I think we got a lot of information to you, sports, and we'll work on getting things refined a bit more. Okay. So waiting to see if anyone comes up with any more questions or something that needs input for this week. And thank you for the question. You see how it really focused the conversation, got a lot of interesting information out there. So thank you very much for starting that conversation. I appreciate it. Okay, I don't see any more comments or questions. So I'll presume we can call it a night here. Go ahead, honey bunny. Yeah. There you go. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.